All right, good morning, everyone. Tyler's having technical difficulties, but we do have Dylan here, so we'll just get started. What's up, Dylan?
Hey man, how's it going?
Yep, thank you for bringing the topic again. So, as usual, I don't mind doing these lives as long as everyone else can send me a topic so I don't have to do as much thinking and work. But, Dylan, maybe this is top of mind for you. That's why you want to discuss it, or something you came across, but you want to talk about kind of return on equity and whatnot, right? So,
Y- Yeah, so this is something that I've been battling with in my own portfolio is just to focus on like of course all of us want to make the highest amount of money on the equity that we have in our properties, and that's where the return on equity concept really comes in. The issue that I've found with return on, like, if you focus too much on return on equity, is during the good times, you're refinancing and pulling as much money out as possible. But what happens in the bad times is you put yourself in a really sticky situation because you can't really ease up on rents or anything like that to essentially like you're in the most leveraged position possible, which prevents you from being able to weather the storms. And I know there's a few people in the community that talk about this a fair bit of just like not always pulling everything out. Like, give yourself some opportunity to have some wiggle room.
yeah, sorry. Tyler's still having video difficulties. We can hear him, but
You guys can still hear me though, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we can hear
Well,
you.
I'll
Yeah.
mess with it while we do this.
Nah, if you want, I mean, you can talk or whatever if you want to hang
Mhm.
around. Don't matter to me.
Yeah, no, I'll be here.
Just yeah. Yeah. So I saw say morning Jim, morning Jason, morning Flavio. Sorry, we're just trying to get this technical stuff figured out. What's up, Joe? Oh, see,
Uh,
Joe's here for Tyler. Oh, there he is. Tyler's on. It worked. Okay, now we can
Heck
roll.
yeah.
So Tyler's here. How you been, man? It's been a while.
Good. Just busy coaching my daughter, working, have some stuff in the works that I am excited about, trying to push the hard money business full time, and that's about it. But yeah, everything's going good so far.
Good, good. Yeah. So I guess I don't know if you saw the topic. I think I sent it to you. Kind of maybe the thoughts on return on equity, risk of doing that, or when do you gauge it in your portfolio? And that's what Dylan was talking about. Kind of what he's trying to decide on, where he's at in his portfolio. And like you're saying, you're doing hard money lending and whatnot. So the people coming to you, I guess, like, they're not really. Are they not really tapping into their equity then, right? Because if they're coming to you for the funding, right, is that the purpose for that?
Yeah, so it'd be like initial funding for fix and flips and stuff like
Mhm.
that, and then they would either sell or then like BRRRR or some function of that. But when you guys are referring to return on equity, I think I saw somebody else talking about this area, like how many months of cash flow would it take to equal what you could pull out in equity, whether through a refinance or a sale? Is that kind of where we're headed with this?
Yeah, that's part of the argument. My other end of the argument is okay, yes, like you may have all of that equity in the property, but what happens if we actually hit a downturn or like what if rents soften in your area or something like that? Like, yeah, it feels really cool to say, oh, I was able to fully pull out all of the money that I had in this deal and plus some, and now I've reduced it down to like what, a 20% down on an investment property, 25% maybe. um, but you might put yourself in a position where like you're not you don't have as much optionality with if anything bad were to happen, and that's the situation I'm in with my portfolio where like if you looked at the equity compared to like what our properties are worth, we're at like 50%, and I'm really fighting with the fact of like, do I want to pull money out? What do I want to do? Because I know I can go and invest that better, but I also like the fact that we cash flow sell healthily, that it only takes a small percentage of our units to actually pay all of our mortgages and a lot of our bills. So it's like, it's kind of like a back and forth there.
Right, and I guess it depends on like what you need. Like, do you need recurring monthly revenue to cover your monthly debts, or are you looking to access that equity to maybe acquire new houses, new properties, whatever it is, or reinvest it somewhere else where it has a higher ROI. I mean, I like it. I mean, I like a little bit of both, right? Still maintaining a healthy equity position, but when you're refinancing and taking debt out, there's no taxes on that. So essentially, you can rinse and repeat. I'm trying to think of who it was. He was making an argument last week. Maybe you guys saw it too, where it's like, I could do this every year, refinance as it goes through, and essentially pay no taxes. And as long as he didn't go over a certain threshold, he would be fine, and he would just be getting A, his monthly cash flow, and B, taking equity out of the property while still having pay down. I have to think of who it was, but yeah, there was like a full podcast on it.
I don't think I saw that one, but I've heard that
Okay.
argument before. Like, or guys saying they like live on the refinances, and
Yeah.
then you
And I
know.
don't know about that. Yeah.
Well, these are usually like hotels and stuff like that. The guy that was
Yeah.
talking, Ben Mala, he was talking about living on the refinances. So that's a little bit different story than what we're used to
Yeah.
dealing with.
Absolutely.
But I do understand the return on equity perspective. I usually look at return on invested capital and then some sort of like measurement of how much did I increase. Like, okay, if I put in, for example, one of the deals I did, you put in 50,000, the property was purchased for 250. Now it's worth 400, and it cash flows like $1,000 a month right now. So I'm like, well, do I pull some of that money out? And I could, but what I've been looking at doing more is just tapping the equity to be able to use that as a like a HELOC or something like that. Like with the investment properties I have, they want me to do commercial lines instead. But I'm feeling like in the situation I'm in, it's just a better option. Um, like I'm not as focused on the ROE, and I like the fact that the initial capital I put in is getting like a 16% uh, return on like what I had invested into the deal, and then trying to tap the equity. But I'm trying to not hinder the cash flow, um, because I do want to have that ability to, if I did have any issues down the road, or like rents did soften in my market, that I can actually like deal with that and not, put myself in a situation where I have an alligator, as everybody in the community refers to it as.
Right. I think it's smart too. And I think you're protecting your equity with a HELOC or anything like that that's tied to the property. If you don't draw on it, you don't have any monthly payments. You're not reducing cash flow, but you have instant access if you need it. So I think that's a good strategy to use. And I think HELOCs, if they're used right, are super powerful. I mean, they're awesome tools. So
Yeah. Yeah. What do you see people mainly do with, because it sounds like you work with a lot of fix and flippers. They doing like DSCR on the back end, or like, like, what are you saying?
yeah, some of them are. Like I had a client last week. He's trying to figure out what if he's going to do a DSCR loan, or if they're going to keep the property in their individual name and then just do a conventional refi. And honestly, like with a lot of institutional debt right now, like a Kiabi or somebody like that, the rates are super close. So I mean, for me, if I have a choice of the same interest rate, but the debt can be tied to my LLC
Mm-hmm.
or to me as an individual, I'm just going to do it with the LLC, especially if it's a rental, like traditional rental or Airbnb. You have it in an LLC for a reason. Usually it's asset protection. Same token, you don't want that debt to hit your credit. So if you can do that, I would do that. So yeah, I think most of them are leaning towards the TSCR, and I think as more and more players enter the space, rates get more and more competitive until Fannie and Freddie reduce all of these LLPAs that they put on rental properties. I think that that's the best option. Now, if they reduce that, which I don't think they will, and drop it back down, and you're talking half to a full point difference in rate, then it makes sense to at least have a couple of those properties in your own name.
Yeah. And I've talked to my local community bank about doing this, but they were like, we're not going to tell you you can't do it, because you can, but we're so essentially getting the debt conventionally in my own personal name and then doing a quick claim into an LLC. They were like, we're not going to tell you you can't do it, because and so many people do it. And I was asking them about the alienation clause in the contract, or like the due on sale, what everybody says, but it's a very gray area. And I have a feeling if the rates are good enough that they are going to go ahead and call those loans due, because they are in their right to call the loans due after it was transferred.
But
From my
what was
understanding.
your plan for that though? You wanted to quit claim it?
So if you get the debt conventionally and
Yeah.
then interest in your personal name, and then you quit claim it over to your LLC, this is something that a lot of people do. But from my
But the
understanding,
debt's not transferring. So even though you have the debt in your name and you do a quit claim, the financing is still in your name though. So the property might look like it's owned in your LLC, but that financing will still be attached to your debt to income, right? So that's the
oh,
issue with just doing a. So that's the problem. People think they think they're quit
mhm.
claiming into their LLC, and now that debt to income is not going to show there, but that financing is not actually moving, right? Just the ownership, in a sense, is moving.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes they want the vesting to remain the same, though. Like the lender's going to request that the vesting stays the same. So what a lot of people do is, if you want to go a step further and do something to that effect, is you can put it into a trust. And a trust, they can't say anything because that's really not the same as an LLC. So I know a lot of people are putting things into trust, or actually, I think that's probably the most common thing. But yeah, when you do that, you do raise red flags with the bank, right? It's like, why are they taking this out of your name, changing vesting into an LLC? Like, what is the end goal? So I think the trust is a better idea, but that's just me.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think the only issue with the trust is that if you're not going to do a lot of things, in a sense, I think, right? So if you're going to just move it, put it in the trust and like basically let it sit or not
Yes,
have any, then that's going to work well. But if you're thinking that you have to, like, you're going to try to do a HELOC or pull out equity or do other moves with it, then it becomes a little bit more of a
it's a
hassle,
pain
I
in the
guess.
butt. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the only thing on that front. How do you guys look at the equity though? Do you look at it in your portfolio as a property, or are you looking at it from from the entire property? I mean, the portfolio in a sense, as far
Hmm.
as return on it.
Tyler, do you want to go ahead on that one?
I just look at it as the overall portfolio. Yeah, like I don't do it individually, and I don't stress on it really either. It's kind of funny, like I just, because it's not actualized until it's. I look at it that's just a funny number, kind of like our own, personal residences. It's like, oh, I have X amount of equity. Well, it doesn't matter unless I need to access it or unless I get access to it. Like it's just there. So I'm tracking it, but I don't stress on it at all. And I think with a lot of things, it's kind of like your 457, right? People study it and they're like freaking out. Like, you should be paying attention, but it's like, oh, I lost $100,000. It's like, well, did you really? Because did you need to access that? Like, did you actually convert some of that? Or is it 10 years down the road that $100,000 loss is now like $1 million gain? So I do it as the whole portfolio, and I try not to do it too much, maybe like once a year to look at where I'm at, unless again it goes back to, do I have capital needs? And if that's the source of the capital, then yeah, I have to pay attention to it and see what I'm going to do if I access that equity and diminish my position.
So, where I am, just because I have a smaller amount of properties, I just have high unit concentration on those. I look at them individually, but at the same time, I don't stress ROE very much. And the reason I haven't been like as focused on it is because of the other like risk factors that I'm looking at. Like I feel like it's not very hard to go out there and raise money if you find a good enough deal. Whereas like if I pull that money out, um, on some of the properties that I have, I get 5-year prepay penalties. So I'd be out 5% of whatever the loan amount was if I actually went ahead and paid some of that off sooner. So yeah, it's not something that I try to concentrate on a ton. It's something I look at periodically, but at the same time, I I feel like if you obsess over like maximizing ROE, you can put yourself in a really bad position.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, that's sometimes why they think they've failed doing a burst strategy and whatnot, right? If they
Mhm.
feel like they're not getting all their money back out and they look at it as a failed process, right? So I think, that's what's beneficial now is the more you do it, then you start realizing I can leave. If I leave more in it, then that's that safety net. Maybe I'm not getting all my money back out, but it's giving me that buffer in a sense. So I think, even Zuber talked about it, right? In some of his few first deals, he started pulling equity out and he looked at it from a portfolio standpoint and he was like, okay, I can pull out this much equity and maybe this one maybe not becomes an alligator where it's negative cash flow, but the cash flow is like break even because he's looking at it from a portfolio, but now he's just putting more risk on that particular property, even though overall portfolio the equity looks fine, right? So I think it also just it becomes like we always talk about, it's where you're at in your journey, right? Like
Mhm.
how much risk you want on the table, and if you just want to be very hands off. I think I saw an interesting way to look at it is like, if you had an employee and you were paying him $100,000 a year or salary, but he was only, in a sense, giving you 5% return at his position. You look at that as a low return on your equity, right? But let's say he is the security guard and he is the one that's protecting your asset, right? He's there just to make sure no one robs you in a sense. So yeah, the return on equity is low, but he's there for that safety net or security. So I thought that was an interesting way to look at return on equity.
No, that is interesting.
And real quick to Dylan's, and you just mentioned the prepayment penalty. I think
Mhm.
people do. I know this is not necessarily equity, but I think people, what I see a ton when I'm talking to people on the conventional and DSCR side is they're so focused on achieving the lowest rate, right? I would highly suggest that when you're talking to whoever handles your financing for anybody is ask what the lowest rate is with that prepay, and then say what kind of prepay options are there. Is there a 1 year prepay? Is there a 2 year prepay? And then see what the rate difference is, calculate into that cash flow and say, okay, well, if I think I might need to access this, maybe I take a quarter point higher, I have a 1 year prepay, and then now after that 1 year I can access it. Because I've done both. I've had some where I have some 5 years on my rental, 5 year prepay on my rental, and then
Mhm.
I have some where I have a 1 year prepay. And you can do like a blended combination between your properties too. And I'm not saying you, I'm saying the number one thing people are so focused on is I need to get the lowest rate. And I'm like, but do you really, especially on a property that, let's say like you have $100,000 loan and that quarter of a point is like $100 a month, for example. Like, do
Mhm.
we really need to? Would you rather have the 5 year or the 1 year prepay? For me, I would rather have the 1 year prepay because if not, like you mentioned, you're gonna reduce your cash position if you need to access that capital. So when you mentioned that like the last week or two, people are so rate focused. I think they need to be focused on what am I looking for outside of just the lowest monthly payment, and what do I think I would need in the future for this property.
Yeah, I think the rate sensitivity is kind of interesting, because all it is just like the price I'm willing to pay is inversely proportional to the rate that I'm getting. So if the rates go higher, I'm willing to pay less, and we just move our numbers around like that. Like
Yeah,
that's why I don't get when people are like super upset that we're in the sevens or they get an 8% interest rate. I'm like, yes, it is higher than a 2 or a 3 that we used to get, but now you just have to be willing to pay less, or you have to be willing to get creative to make it work. Like you can't just complain that you can't find a house on Zillow that rents out and you can cash flow it. Like we just got to get creative and find solutions.
absolutely. And all that debt, once if you're acquiring everything at sevens and eights, and then rates go back down to fours, fives, or sixes, now you have a cheaper asset and you get a better rate.
Wait, I'm trying to figure out what Joe is. Joe said, move from your name to trust, then sell trust to LLC, but debt stays in your name.
Sounds very convoluted.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Move?
I see what he's saying, but yeah, I mean, I think effectively now it's still going to be vested in an LLC, right? Or no, I
Yeah.
guess the LLC has ownership of the trust, so it would be vested in the trust. The debt stays in your name, and the LLC owns the trust.
I think this is how we were talking to Ray, and he did a seller finance deal, and and took over their existing mortgage. And I think that's how he did it. Was he had them move the property into a trust, and then the trust was sold to him or something like that. He'd be better to explain it.
Yeah, I think I've heard, and I don't know if it's exactly a trust, but I've heard that also some people um, buy the LLC in a sense.
Mhm.
But then I guess you just have to do your due diligence on that LLC if there's anything, um, I guess, not up to date, I guess, in a sense. If they owe anything, if there's anything, legally wise with that entity, and that would be up to you, I guess. So the holding company, that's actually something I have been considering, but nothing makes sense right now. So I kind of got caught up in that whole LLC structure, and so each one of my properties is an LLC,
Oh
and
wow.
there's a holding company for it. Um, so but for me, if I was to do a portfolio loan, then it would be transferring each title almost in a sense. And Pennsylvania has a very high transfer title fee. So even more so, it wouldn't make sense. But that's why I was looking into if I did a portfolio loan as the holding company was to buy all the, basically put the financing in the holding company to take over, or in a sense, hold all the properties as it is now. Now my asset protection structure would be broken in a sense, which I know it's easily been broken already since of commingling funds and whatnot to pay bills. So that's why I was kind of like, maybe I should just look into my holding company doing the portfolio loan. But where rates are and whatnot, it still doesn't really make too much sense. But that is on the table for me that I was looking at to get liquid if I needed to. Hey, morning, Harrison. Morning, Kenny. Yeah, thanks everyone for stopping by. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, are you, so how's the hard money side going? I see you pushing that quite a bit, Tyler.
Um, it's good. It's funny, like Dylan was mentioning. It's funny on the other side of it, right? Like I'm always raising funds for myself and my flips and stuff like that. It's going slower than I thought, but we're getting traction. I just for me, I've always done out of state for the last few years. So now I'm trying to plug myself back into the market here in SoCal and try and like either start new relationships or revive the old ones. But I think it'll be fine. I mean, with the amount of capital I have, I feel like it'll be a good, it's something that I would rather pursue at this point than continuing to buy properties. So it's slow to start, but it'll get there.
Tell me about I seen, is that the Maltese Mortgage? Is that yours?
Yeah, so Maltese Mortgage is my mortgage company that I have for all the like the conventional and standard stuff, and then I can't even advertise my company name until the California DRE approves it. So I'm allowed to do it under Maltese Mortgage, but I'm going to shift it to a company. It'll just be Maltese Capital because I want to keep everything separate. But yeah, I have it all set up. I have all the branding set up. It's just that the California DRE states that I can't advertise or even conduct business under that name until they approve the DBA. So I did that, and I'm just waiting for them to give me the thumbs up. And if you know California, they do not move very fast. So yeah, it'll be the same thing. So I have Maltese real estate, Maltese mortgage, and then now I will have Maltese capital. I'm
I
pretty
know.
original when
I
it comes
saw
to
you.
naming.
It was pretty fancy. Your podcast setup with the Maltese Mortgage logo and everything set up.
Oh, do you like that?
Yeah, but
Dude, yeah. So
go check out First Responder Financial Freedom also on YouTube. Go subscribe. They seem to be putting out. I think you guys got Aaron off of in charge of the social media side because you guys are responding a lot
cleaning it
quicker
up.
now.
We're
But
cleaning it up, yeah, and we're putting a more concerted effort to do it every single week. So what we've done is just we've started to ask for more guests, and we've had you on before, and we're trying to get at least 30-minute shows out there more regularly. And we had some cool ones so far. We had Frontline Optics was just on the other day. We have a bunch of cool stuff coming out, and we're just trying to grow the show. I was just thinking when you guys were talking, if you want somebody creative, I know you have a lot of access, but Tommy Williams is a retired police officer that is super well versed in a lot of creative stuff, and he's an interesting interview. He's kind of like Aaron.
Oh shit, man.
I just love busting his chops because he's a cop. So him and I talk trash to each other all day long.
And
But
also,
he's a real.
no.
He's,
Yeah, Dylan's channel is also there, so go subscribe. And then the PayPal link for Frank is selling the ORAT t-shirts again. He's getting it
oh, there you go.
moving again for the One Rent at a Time event coming up in February next year. So go check that out. And yeah, so let's see. Let me get rid of that. Oh, hold on.
Got that sponsorship slot.
Yeah. So
Nice.
go check out the PayPal link and go order your shirt. And if it doesn't fit, I think he'll return it. You can swap it out. I know Flavio was asking about that. But Val's here. Big Val is here. So oh yeah, let's see. Oh, Harrison is meeting with a self-storage guy next week. He owns down in South Carolina. So Dylan, maybe talk on that. I know you went to some kind of meeting or something also in your county.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't. I don't think they like me too much, just because my partners are they're action heavy, so they got all of the self storage units on site before I got the zoning changed. So when I went in there to speak about changing zoning, I was immediately on the defensive because they were pretty visibly irritated about that, and we're zoned for outdoor storage, so technically we can have the buildings, like, because my partner sells those, like, that style of like steel framed buildings, so he can have any kind of that he wants. But they were pretty mad about that. But yeah, so I have to go to the next zoning meeting after having a planner and an engineer, and I was thinking about potentially bringing somebody from my local bank and maybe an attorney to get it done next time, just to really send it home, so I don't have to defend myself this time, and I can have people that actually are proficient on the topic speak about it. Because I was just going in there trying to do it all myself, and yeah, they were not having it. But yeah, at least in my state, any self-storage is considered industrial, and so it has to have industrial zoning. Well, the property we have is commercial, and we have a variance for like outdoor storage, and we're trying to get a variance for self-storage as well. Yeah, it's just gonna take longer than I thought it was gonna take, but I mean, that's working with the government for you.
Yeah, so I was telling him, Tyler, maybe Mike, we got to get Mike back on, or
Oh, there you go.
I don't know how I know he's been trying to get. I see him walking or with the ruck pack and all of that. So I don't know how he's doing and how's the recovery going. But I don't think you've ever been on with Kevin though. You never met Kevin, right? He's a firefighter in the Bay Area, but he does self storage also. So I know Dylan connected with him. So, but
Yeah,
let's
I
see
think
what else.
Mike and Bill might have just acquired another. He's doing good. His beard's so thick it looks fake. We were making fun of him the other day on the show. We're like, dude, did you draw that on your face? It looks like so clean. I'm like, that looks so weird.
I asked Aaron if he wanted to do a live with Erica. Recently, he said, "Oh, he just doesn't have the time already with his newborn." And I said, "Yeah, I don't see as much memes from you, so I know you're busy."
All the dad jokes have hit
Yeah.
an all-time low.
Yeah. Hey, so Todd, I know you, like you said, you're kind of doubling down on the hard money side. You're not really looking at acquiring, rentals probably. Is that also kind of your way of maybe less risk in a sense? You're just even like how we're looking at return on equity as certain ways to get less risk by lowering the return, I guess, in a sense. But is that your focus on hard money?
Well, I think I just saw penciling stuff out and looking at returns. I'm like, okay, well, like, what am I going to get on an annual basis? And it made a lot of sense, right? Like, if I'm going to devote a lot of time and I'm already doing the mortgage business, this is more like symbiotic with what I do on a day-to-day basis anyways. Like, I still like the flipping and stuff like that, but it's out of state. I'm paying for marketing, all those things. And when I look at it, I'm like, okay, my return can be way higher on this. So that's really the biggest reason is I'm looking like, like since I've been retired, I am now in a position where I'm trying to create that heavy cash flow, and I want to do something that's repeatable. And I think this is just, yeah, it's no matter what the market, people are doing deals, right? So as long as I'm underwriting properly and assessing that risk, I think it's the returns are crazy, to be honest. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna focus on that and see how it goes.
I feel like I've seen a lot of investors that like once they reach a certain point, they shift over to the private money side, at least with part of their portfolio, just so it's like
For
one, like
sure.
heavy cash flow, but two, you're not really doing that much work once you set those loans up.
It's yeah, and I wouldn't. It's funny. Like I keep thinking, I think like 2017, a bunch of us started in Investor Fuel, and now it's been 7, 8 years since then. And you're right. Like a lot of the guys, like Mike's doing private money lending. My buddy Neil in Indiana is doing private money lending, and I was talking with Mike Cambright, who runs Fuel, and he was saying, yeah, a lot of people, that's like the natural progression. And since we were all kind of during that same period, a lot of people do it. Yeah. And I think I would never turn a deal down either. So I should clarify, like I do have my marketing running for Boise. It's just at a much smaller budget and pace, but like to turn down those pops would be crazy in my opinion too, right? Like if you get a good wholesale deal or a really good rental, like continue to do it. But yeah, it's just way less time intensive. And like I love how much I get to coach my kids, and like, oh my god, at this point, that's what I want to do.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I think I was listening to James Daynard on the Bigger Pockets podcast talk about that, and he was saying like, some of the times it's like 12% plus 2 points on some of his loans. So he's like, if you put, half a million into that, you're making what is that like 60 grand a year plus the 2 points. Like that's pretty nice just on
It
that
is.
in the grand scheme of things on a relatively small amount of capital, if you think about it.
Yeah, and you can do it like too, like you can put it out of your 401k, IRA, invest that as your investor funds. Yeah, but rule 72, right? So at 12%, you're doubling your money every 6 years. Let's say you have that 12%, 2 points, and you churn it twice a year. So what is
Hmm.
that for? 16%. Then I
Yeah.
mean, 16% on, let's say, a max loan to value of like 60 or 70% on a good asset. It's crazy. Yeah. And there are risks. And so for me right now, that's what I'm trying to learn as much as possible about California foreclosure process, what needs to happen, making sure that I already have an attorney in mind, things like that, because not everything is sunshine and rainbows, like you said, with your storage
Hmm.
facility or any rental known to man never runs smoothly. I don't care what anybody says. But we reap the rewards on the long end. But yeah, so yeah, it's the returns are crazy. So that's what I've been modeling is like one turning money once, twice, or 3 times a year. I think 3 times is a little high. I think about 2 to 2.5 would be perfect. And yeah, you're getting like 16 to 18% on your money. So and
That's
if I can,
insanity.
yeah, it's crazy, and you don't have to do a ton of it. But I, even before I started this in earnest, I liked lending money out to my friends. If we had extra money and they had a good deal, I would lend it to them. They would lend us their funds, and that way everybody's making money.
So I've got a question for you on that then, because I've looked at doing that before. Because we have a credit line that we can use and it is at prime. So like if we were lending it out at hard money rates, it makes sense. Um, the only issue that I run into is I don't want to lend money on a deal unless I'm the only money on the deal. Because I want to have first position in case they have any issues. Is that generally what you're doing?
Yeah,
Uh,
I've done one second position lean, and that was with my own money, and it was with somebody that I knew really well. But yeah, especially because I'm responsible for my investors' capital, I just think I can't do it. And I'm not like I'm much more conservative now, so I would never, me personally, I would never do anything other than first position leans.
yeah. Um, Mark, I know you know the 50/40 Do you think that seller, because like if I were a seller in that position, I don't know if I would want to do something like that just because they are taking like half of it in a 40% like second position. Um, You know what I mean? Like I've heard the guys talk about them a few times, and it sounds amazing. Like provided that it's a good operator taking over, like that may change the story. But I just don't know if I would ever take a second position on a property like that.
Um, I think, you know, it's the easy answer is always, it's kind of where you're at in your journey and how much assets you have. But so I think a lot of people that would consider doing from the seller side of 50/40/10, I'm going to envision them as all having a big portfolio, kind of ready to that exit phase. So being in a second position on a small portion of their portfolio for them doesn't necessarily matter that much, I guess, in a sense. I'm sure it matters, but for them,
Mhm.
they're looking for not paying all that taxes if they were to just sell it traditionally and paying all the capital gains. They still want the cash flow with, being hands off. So I think for me it's like finding that ideal seller, like the person that's trying to liquidate certain things, doesn't want to pay the taxes, still wants the cash flow, be hands off. So I think ideally, like you're saying, for a lot of people they'd probably be, I don't know if I'd want to be in this position, right? Especially if it's maybe your only asset, right? Your only, rental property you have. But if you had this big portfolio, you're kind of, okay, I get the benefits and maybe I'm taking a little risk, but it's a small portion of my portfolio, right? So I think, like you say, yeah, ideally it's some people would be hesitant. But I think ideally it's probably someone that has a big portfolio that's going to be looking to that is fine for them to take on in that second position, right? Um,
Yeah,
but
Curtis has a good point there in the chat.
similar to why would someone sell on a discount to a wholesaler? Everybody has a different situation. Yeah, just like I always bring, I love that story Curtis was talking about, right? Like how he's been sitting down having coffee with a lot of operators in his area, longtime investors, and that one investor who has a good sized portfolio, but now he doesn't even put insurance on his properties. I don't know if you heard that, Tyler. So this individual has all these paid off properties and just doesn't even want to, I guess he's probably dealt with insurance companies and just like it's such a hassle. I probably don't get paid out what I'm expecting. So for him, he doesn't even have insurance, but he just puts his own part of, percentage from the cash flow as like his own insurance policy.
Okay.
And that's the way that individual is handling it, right? So I mean, for a new investor, you would probably be like, oh, that's just crazy, right? But for someone
Right.
that has this bigger size and has been doing it, and it's a small and they are allocating for it, that's their strategy. And but so like I said, the easy answer is always, where you're at in your journey, right? But I think that's why it's great being around people that are at different points, right? You can kind of see how their mind is thinking. And even this whole question on return on equity, right? Everyone's kind of looking at it a different way. Even like I keep bringing up because the biggest topic we've been having recently is the cash flow versus net worth kind of topic, right? And as you can see, everyone kind of has a different stance on it, right? So I don't know about you, Tyler, if we've been talking about that quite a bit. And
About what's more important.
well, like we said, that the easy answer is most people would say both. You kind of need both. But if you were to kind of have someone that was just starting off, like would you have them focus on the cash flow standpoint, or would you be telling them to focus on building their net worth?
I think that's tough, but I think it depends on the individual, right? That's not like it's kind of like a cop out answer, but it's true. Because I'm thinking, like, let's say you have a doctor or like a professional who makes a lot of money. I would say they should focus on building their equity position. If you have somebody who's trying to get off the ground and maybe make this as their sole source of income, then you need to strictly focus on cash flow, and equity will happen regardless.
Yeah.
So the way I said it, I think we had talked like a couple weeks ago when I was at a coffee shop about this specific topic. I think for somebody that's a beginner and it's their first property ever, you're going to make mistakes. Like you can read all the books, watch all the YouTube videos on YouTube University. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to spend too much money in certain areas. So I think if you were to focus on cash flow at first, and then when you get experienced, you can start to focus on equity. Um, But yeah, the cop-out answer is I want you to buy a good deal where you're going to get equity and then you get the cash flow.
That's why. So we did have Dion on, have it that little debate with Dion and Brandon. And like Dion told me, he said, no one's wrong, right? It's,
Yeah.
both people are right, but it's just fun to kind of see how people view it and their thoughts on it. And, like Brandon, who has a more finance banking background, that's why for him, he definitely feels the net worth standpoint is how you truly build wealth, right? And so it was interesting. Yeah, like I said, no one is wrong, but Todd, I want to get back to kind of, your hard money lending and so are you only doing it in Boise and you're trying to branch
only
out to
only in California.
only California? Okay. So Boise is where you're doing your flips though, right? Or no?
Correct. Yeah. So I flip and hold in Boise, and then the hard money is in California. And it's just it was at that time the price points in Boise were much more affordable than where I live in Southern California. Like yourself, right? It makes sense. So, but with the hard money, I personally want to be able to be more present for sure, at least when it first starts. But just be able to have my pulse on everything. So, yeah, it's just in California right now.
And what about, I know you touched on the softball side and your daughter. So that's kind of the focus too for you right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all stars right now, so it's like 7 days a week pretty much. So it is. And I was talking with Mike and Aaron about that. And Aaron is learning, right? Because Aaron just had his second kid, and it's a very small window that we can do all of this. So I always feel like I'll be able to make money and ramp stuff up and do stuff that when I need it, and I'm never gonna have this time back. So I think that's more important. But I mean, I went from a workaholic to a softball dadaholic, I guess, and then I'll probably go back to a workaholic after it's all done.
True. But I know I touched on it the past few lives because I saw it over the weekend. Zuber mentioned it too because I brought it up to him. And I don't know if have you ever followed Mark Ferguson, Tyler, the
Yeah,
Invest
I
for
do.
More?
That was a bummer. I mean, I followed him for, I mean, early 2000s, right? Like I think that's when he started, was at least his blog. A blog. I mean, I don't even think blogs are a thing anymore, but I used to read his blog. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's very saddening and kind of sudden, and it makes you realize tomorrow's not guaranteed. And I think to your point of, your daughter, like kind of your main, the softball, everything to that extent. And I think that's what always comes down to kind of what's the end goal, right? And like you said, you kind of built yourself a certain safety net and so that you can focus on that side of things right now. And then, when your daughter probably doesn't want you around or hanging around with you, right? And then you can go back to being your workaholic self, you're saying,
Which is
right?
close. And then yeah, my son's doing football, so I'll probably help out with that too. But yeah, she's getting close. So I'm really enjoying it now. But yeah, what is the average flip in Boise?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you mean like price point or profit, but when I started, I was buying houses for 70 to 80 grand a pop. And now it's in the threes. So I'm very specific in what I want to do. I want first time home buyer type property, usually 2,000 square feet or less, built after 1970. I would prefer public utilities close to certain. I don't want really anything out on the periphery, close to a city. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I used to do older houses. I don't want to do older houses. Everything for me is, 70s and after. And yeah, it's about 300,000. And I try to buy them at 50 to 60 cents on the dollar. And if I can't get it, I just pass and it'll happen.
Flavio wants to know if you got to wear a bulletproof vest though in that area. No, because so Flavio, he's in the Grandview, Washington area. I guess
Oh, okay.
he's getting a little priced out of his market. He's thinking, and he's just trying to look other areas. And there is a lot of
Mm.
people in our community investing in Gary and Pittsburgh, and he's always teasing that, oh man, I got to wear a bulletproof vest if I want to go to those markets. So
He should check out. This is like my little honey hole, not for rentals, but for flips. So it's funny that I said I don't go on the periphery. There's one town I will go out on the periphery, and that's Payette. And it's a tiny, tiny town. but I've done like 4 or 5 flips there and like really good return and a lot less competition. So if he's getting priced out, I would look for a town of a town that's somewhat close, but yeah, that you don't need a bulletproof vest. Payette, you don't. That's a good example. You don't. It's funny. I actually had to have a sheriff sign an affidavit stating that the seller was who she said she was because she was partaking in a little bit too much of extracurriculars and was didn't have a driver's license, didn't have anything, and all they wanted to do was get her out. But yeah, Boise is nice. Boise's beautiful, but even Boise, like I said, in 2017, it was nowhere near as competitive as it is now, and you have some big time players there now that make it kind of like SoCal, right? But you can go look out in anywhere in the country and apply the same principles, like what's in a path of progress, what's going to grow, what's affordable for me, and then how can I build a team? But yeah, if you're in, I would look at there's some border towns right there that are Payette's been really good. Now it's
Um,
never going to be the same again.
so Tyler, I know you said you're in California, like you said, you invest or flip in Boise, and I know a lot of people, did relocate there, COVID-19 time and whatnot, get out of California. But then I also saw articles where people felt like they made a mistake, like it was a lot cold. The weather, it's a lot colder than California. Do you see that, or is that kind of just headline media?
I think it's blown up a little bit, but I do like yeah, we were considering moving there, but my wife is not a cold weather person. I'm not that I really am either. I think I could do it, but yeah, and I think a lot of it too is like lifestyle and things that like so Southern California specific, a lot of people moved from SoCal to Boise, and I think that it was during COVID. They wanted free space, they wanted to be doing things, and then they realized even with a lot of the stuff that people rail about our government in California, it's we have like where I live, it's like an average weather of probably 60 to 70 year round. We're 15, 20 minutes from the beach. And you don't have that in Idaho. With that being said, I mean, there's a lot of people that are picking not just Boise, but like I see like, oh, I move here. There's a Facebook page called Leaving California. And I love, you got, seriously, and you got to, it's a huge group. But a lot of people, they think they're leaving for one reason. They go there and they didn't do enough research. But most people that I know personally that have gone to Boise, they're super happy. It's beautiful. And I mean, you have access to stuff like 15 minutes out of town. You're like in nature. So I don't know.
You
I think
hear
it's
this,
enough.
Jen? You hear this, Jen, about leaving California? But I know if Casey is here, I gotta let him know about that Facebook leaving California group and
Yeah,
have him check it out. He's done. He's out of there already. He said.
it's hard. I mean, it's expensive here. I mean, it is ridiculous. That's the hard part. It's like Hawaii,
I
right? Hawaii is beautiful but expensive.
Yeah, yeah. But at
I feel
least,
like
so yeah. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say I feel like Texas is a pretty good alternative. It's nice. The weather stays warm. If you want to go to a beach, you can go down to Galveston. Maybe it's not the same thing as SoCal, but I think it's still pretty good.
Yeah, my sister's in East Texas right now too.
Oh, Casey. Casey is here. I don't know if you heard that. Casey, there. Tyler, who's in California, said there is a Facebook group leaving California. So I was mentioning that you got to go check that out. But yeah, Casey's over it. He's probably 2 feet out the door already. But I think he's gonna trial in Vegas and test it out and see because I think the weather's a little too hot year round in Vegas for him. So I think that's what he's kind of got to decide on. Joel's here. Thanks for tuning in, Joel. Joel's gonna start getting back on his regular live streams, I believe. So we just did something this weekend, so go check out Joel's channel. But Joel says property taxes are so damn high. I love Galveston. Was at the San Luis for Easter. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No,
So
I've heard that about
well, that's the
Texas.
thing. See, Casey wants a link, Tyler, for the Facebook group, but oh, Jen wants to take it down. She says so. Jen's in California also, but she's not. She's sad
She's
that
not leaving.
everyone's trying to leave her. From the ORAC community. But yeah, I think
Nothing.
like anything, everywhere has some kind of issue, right, or some problem that you might have to deal with to some extent, right? So, like you're saying, like Tyler, there's a lot of reasons why you stay there, right? And I think you know, I hate, you know, there is probably a lot of people in California that are financially well off or better, and for them, the insanity or whatever you want to call it of the politics or whatnot going on there, they're able to deal with it because they're living in their own little, you know, bubble in
Paradise.
a sense, right? So I think that's another important reason why becoming financially free or financially independent, that you can either make these decisions. If you don't like what's going on, you can always pick up and relocate, or if not, you're fine staying there because it doesn't affect you as much in a sense, right? So um but
Well, another thing that I was thinking of recently, um, just because like I've been house hacking for like the past couple years, and like if you can find the right house hack, it really doesn't matter what market you live in, because the biggest expense most people have is their housing. So if you're able to eliminate the expense that is so variable between the markets, like living in I feel like living in Indiana is like living in Texas or like living in SoCal, like provided that you can get the right pricing. That's where we come into an issue of like, hey, can I actually make this break even? But if you can live anywhere you want without being too worried about the pricing of everything.
this might be a great question for you, Tyler. So Curtis, PE turned RE, he's in the Tacoma, Washington area, but he says flipping seems a great way to get chunk money. What should a first time consider? There's not like a way to practice. Oh, okay. So
Um,
how did your first flip go, Tyler?
I made $6,000. And that's not great for a flip, right? But so I would say, I mean, partner with somebody might be the best idea. Maybe partner with an experienced flipper. Um, realize that you might not make any money. Let's say so the way my partner, so it's actually funny. So the guy that I had doing acquisitions on my first property ended up becoming my partner in that deal. And he said, well, let's look at it this way. If you make no money but complete your first flip, is it really a bad thing? And I'm like, no, because now I have private money under my belt, which I had to use private money. So I had to figure out who my private money was, figure that all out. I figured out the remote investing process and a bunch of stuff. And I still made, I mean, $6,000 is nothing to like shake a stick at all. But for the risk, it was kind of probably not the greatest. But I would just say, maybe partner somebody, go in on a deal. You don't have to do it. So this is a long answer. You don't have to do a full gut remodel. Look for something that you can essentially wholesale maybe too, right? What needs cosmetic repairs, painting, maybe carpet, light repairs, and build on that way. So the first one I bought was a house built in the early 2000s. We had to clean it out, paint it, carpet, redo it, put new appliances in, put sod in the yard, and then that was it. And then do a bunch of those and then expand. And depending on the market and your cash flow situation, then you can start to take on bigger projects. Like right now, I would not take on a gut remodel. At one point, I was buying properties so cheap because of certain areas that I took it down to the studs, knowing it was going to be a 6 to 9 month process and do it because I knew the return was going to be great. But that was for a specific point in time. So if I'm going to start, I'm going to look for a lipstick or wholesale type flip, maybe partner with somebody and look for a market that you can afford. But like, if you break even, I don't think that's a terrible thing. And maybe many people would like just crucify me for that. But I think if you break even and you get the experience, that's what it's all about, right? A lot of people pay 6 figures to go to college to get an education. And if you break even for an education, it's not really a bad deal if you look at it that way.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, Joel says, someday I want to build a city in southern Mississippi, cheapest land in the country. No reason, just because. Jim says ignorance is bliss. Oh, this is a good one because it looks like some Harrison also kind of same worry. But Jen says, in growth mode, biggest fear is that whenever I get to that harvest mode, my kids won't want anything to do with me. Anyone else have that fear? How about you, Tyler? Is that something you fear?
That's why I'm doing that, what I'm doing, because I do. And my wife keeps good perspective for me too. So, um, yeah, I'm in the belief that I'll sacrifice income right now to spend time with my kids. 100%. It's not even a sacrifice. It's what I want to do. So
Yeah. It's
I,
I mean, oh, go ahead, Dylan.
I was gonna say I'm too young to answer this question. Sorry, guys.
Well,
well,
no,
remember
you're
it
not
because you'll
too
never get it back.
young.
You'll never get it back.
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay. So you saying you're young, right? Now, does that, as far as, I don't know if, having a kid is on the table or something you think about, but would you consider at a younger age something? I mean, would you want to have a kid at a younger age, or kind of wait like to you're financially free, maybe, or stay? What, at what point is it on the table? I guess, in a sense.
Yeah. So I mean, I started this journey more or less at like 23, 24. The objective was to be retired by retired. Like I'm still going to do real estate, like no doubt about that. But the objective was by 30 to be retired. So when I have kids, I don't necessarily have to work. If that makes sense. So like I was like pre-planning everything around the fact that I want to be able to be completely retired, travel the world, whatever, and then also have the time to deal with all of that stuff from the start instead of because I know it's a lot of work and it's a lot of like I can't take the same risk that I'm taking now when I do have kids unless I am already in a very good position financially by then it's not as much of a risk as it would have been if I had kids sooner and then tried to do the same thing I'm doing now. That so yes, I guess like relatively soon within the next few years, I do plan on that. I just wanted to get some of this like the going towards financial freedom out of the way beforehand while I can take like stupid amounts of risk that you can't take when you have a kid because like you have other responsibilities.
It does
I
change
think,
your perspective on risk for sure, right? Would
yeah.
you say
Well,
some
so
more?
but there's a flip side, right? So I think I talked about it in the last live. I think it was Hormozy or someone, or there was someone talking about it, but almost like having a child forces you to win, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe take risks because you have to put food on the table, or you have to provide, so you don't have that, you can't fail, right? So in a sense you have to put in the work, right? So where maybe, like, if you don't have a child, you can kind of just not necessarily cruise along, but yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that, and I don't have to provide for other people. So for me, it's just me, the responsibility, right? Whereas if you have a family or child, then now you're like, okay, I have to do this, right? So it pushes you to want more. And I think, same thing, right? It always comes down to mindset, like how you look at the situation, right? Like some people might look at, oh, a child is super expensive and I have all these extra bills to pay and this and that, right? So that's why I'm going to wait. Whereas, some people might think, okay, if we're going to do this, then it's going to push me to have to do more, right? So let's see. Oh, there's proof. I was summoned. Someone said Bitcoin. See, I thought I heard your name, but I didn't see a comment because someone welcomed you. But he's always asking for someone speaking on Bitcoin, and I'm working on it. I'm trying to. It's they don't like coming on camera a lot. That's the thing. So they don't like to speak live, I think. Let's see. Harrison says, Tyler, when you look at markets for hard money loans, do you ever worry that a market could lose value? Wait, yeah, lose value you do to AI job loss.
I think that's more of like a rental type concern in my opinion, because the hard money loans are going to be 6 to 12 months at the longest, and I don't. I mean, maybe it could move at that speed, but I do. I'm very curious, and I'm not smart enough to answer the question is what is going to happen to property value if a lot of jobs are lost to AI? And like, let's say we get like, you can go as far as like, does everybody get a stipend and what that looks like? I do not know. And so on the hard money, no, because it's a 6 to 12 month hold period. So if in a declining market, then you're going to have a lower loan to value. But for the hard money, it's a 6 to 12 month loan period. I'm not really concerned with that. With my rentals, I think about this, and like I said, I'm not smart enough to figure this out, but I'm very curious as to what's going to happen with property value over time if our economy changes because of AI. I don't know if you guys think about this. Maybe I'm thinking too deep into it, but I have thought, well, what's going to happen if all these jobs are lost and I have all these properties and they're leveraged and home values go down? There's only been like 5 or 6 years in the history of the US when they've been tracking it where property value actually goes down. I want to say it's like less than 10 for sure. But what do you guys think? I mean, long term is what I'm focused on for the AI stuff.
Yeah, there was I have to catch up on it. There was a podcast recently. I forget who the main people were, but it was these 24 jobs will be gone due to AI in the next, I think it was, might have been 4 years, I think, or I gotta go look at it. It's in my history. I gotta watch it again. But yeah, I think, definitely AI is a game changer, right? It's gonna if you're not thinking about it, I would be a little more concerned if you're not looking into it or even learning how to use it or leverage it. But it is definitely going to play a role in how things happen. But I think it's also going to create different jobs. So, but
Mhm.
that's why you have to pay attention to it, right? You just have to see where the ball is moving, right? In a sense, right? It's you want to be ahead of that, right? So definitely there is going to be jobs that are lost due to AI. It's going to also probably create a lot of jobs, but same thing, right? If you're not paying attention and you're just kind of reacting to things, then you're always going to be playing from behind, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. No, I agree on that one, Mark. I also think like people are always going to have somewhere to live. So I'm not as stressed about something like AI as I would be if we started to have like a problem like Japan has right now, where they have a declining population. Like that stresses me out a lot more than AI ever would. Thankfully, we don't have a situation like that right now in the United States. But I mean, um, it's a possibility that we could have that in the future, and that would definitely be a big problem for property values.
Sorry, man, I skipped over. This was for you, Dylan, from Joel.
Oh,
What markets are you in, and how many house hacks have you done?
just Indiana, and specifically around Indianapolis. I don't invest inside the loop. I invest outside the loop. The reason for that is I don't like dealing with Marion County. I don't like Marion County because they don't necessarily like landlords. You can kind of get where I'm going there. I've only done one house hack, but just stayed with the same one for a while. I did recently move. Just moved into one of my grandparents' houses because they had to move into a retirement home. So I'm just helping them out with taking care of the house and paying them rent that is like not findable in my market. So I guess you could call this a second house hack because I rented out my previous apartment for more than I rent this house for. But yeah, so one or two, depending on how you want to count it, maybe one and a half. I'm looking to do another one. I want to move towards the top side of Indianapolis because that's where all of the money is. So I want to be more around more of the real estate investors and like developers and everything like that up there. But I need to find a duplex or build a duplex, one of the two.
You're giving me shit about how I spelled invest because it said incest to wealth, but the C is next to the V, assholes, and I'm trying to type and mute and you know, give me a break. But yeah, the C is next to V. But yes, Hyder says that U.S. needs to be more productive to counteract the high cost of production for us to be at all competitive. Yes, very true. And just I want to remind everyone about, we always talk about it. This is kind of a little bit off topic, but about networking and building a community and reaching out to people and being supportive. So Hyder has mentioned that he got basically a free paid ticket to attend Rebel Capitalist from George Gammon because he is so supportive in that community. He's always moderating the lives, the videos, commenting. So George Gammon met George Gammon at last year's event, Gammon said, "Yeah, you're super supportive and helpful, and I'll get, I'll send you a ticket." And Hyder thought nothing of it. Hyder thought, he's just, blowing smoke up my ass. And he said he got in the mail. He opened it up, and it was basically a $2,000 value ticket to attend Rebel Capitalist this year. So, yeah, it's awesome, Hyder, but well deserved, man. Let's see. Yeah, see, Hyder, you type USSS and not USA. What kind of show is this becoming, Mark? Yes, there's other, Anyway, Jen's always here to make trouble, but thanks for always uh tuning in, Jen. Yeah, I'll come visit you if you move out of California, maybe. Come visit you and Kenny. Uh, let's see. What else? We got nothing else, right? Oh, okay. I don't know. Anything else you guys want to talk about, or um, let's see.
I see that Joel said that his sister went to IUPUI and played soccer there. St. Elmo's is good. I like Ruth Chris a lot more. So if you're back in Indy, that's my favorite spot to go. If you do like the St. Elmo's chain, there's 1933, which is like their I can't think of the word for it right now, but essentially they created that restaurant to commemorate St. Elmo's being started in 1933. It's in the Fishers district in Fishers. It's pretty good.
I didn't even know Joe had a sister. As long as I've talked, I didn't even know he had a sister. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. Anything else you guys want to dig on? Return on equity? Anything else you guys working on?
I think something interesting would be Tyler. It sounded more like you were building a fund for the hard money business rather than it's like I assume some of your money's in the fund, but like, can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I think that's actually pretty interesting because if you're able to pool money together and then get like, 14, 16% per year on it, it's pretty sweet.
So I chose not to do a fund. So I do have investors that I invest their capital, but I do
Mhm.
only direct placement. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to have to go through the process of doing a fund. It's very popular. I know a lot of Jurasi is probably not probably, they're the largest private money law firm in the country, and so they prefer that model. But yeah, I don't. I have investors money, I do have my own money in, and then but I only do direct placement. So like if there was a $200,000 loan and you had your money, that would be your loan and your loan only, and that's how it would work. So yeah, there's a lot of people doing funds. I have
Mhm.
friends who have funds in California. I just personally, like I said, I'm conservative. I don't want to have to do all that. I don't want to make any mistakes. With my background, I know, okay, I can place funds directly for each property. And for me, it makes more sense. I think I'm giving up a lot of freedom that way and other things, but that's just the way I like to do it.
Yeah, no, I've just always wanted to like one do the real estate investment office, but also like just being able to like have the versatility to do whatever we want to do. Because that's one thing me and my partner talk about is we've wanted to raise money, but we don't want to raise money just for like well, we're buying this specific deal. We want to raise permanent capital. So, like, we want to be able to invest in stocks with it because that's something he's really good at. And I like the flipping side of the business. I also have friends that are flippers. And I'm like, hey, these guys are paying 12% plus 2 points. Why don't we put in some money to that? Because that would be amazing. And then also having the multifamily, so having like this like diverse portfolio of things going on under the umbrella of the fund. But I feel like it's a lot harder to, have somebody give you money and just say, "Hey, I don't want it back for a really long time."
See, and that's, yeah. And raising money is not terrible as long as you, I mean, it's not hard as long as you have good returns, right? But yeah, for me, it's the onus of having to produce a return every single month if I have a fund, right? Because people are expecting return on their capital. That
Hmm.
I don't like, because I don't want to be forced to be loaning money out if I don't think it's there's good deals. So that's honestly the biggest reason for me, because I feel like people, when they do it, they put themselves in a position where they have to be investing that capital, and
Hmm.
I think that's where mistakes get made. And do not want to ever lose anybody's money.
So, question then about how like the deal functions. Are you Okay, so like let's say somebody needs $200,000 for a project. Are you going to somebody else and saying, "Hey, so we have this person that needs this money for this. We're able to loan them out the money at this rate," and then you have some sort of split with them or like placement fees or something like that? Like how does that work?
Yeah, so I have somebody who's my main investor, and then you can do a couple different things. The way I do it is I arbitrage the debt, right? So like I pay them 9 or 10, I
Mhm.
lend it out at 11 or 12, so I get that spread, and then I charge 1.5 to 2 points, and then I take that as well. So they're earning 9 to 10% on their money, and then I'm
Mhm.
taking the arbitrage and the origination fees.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. So that's kind of like what I would be doing if I just used my commercial line of credit that I have that's at like seven and a half
100%.
percent. Yeah, that's okay. I thought I
And banks
sounded
will
kind
give
of
you a
crazy.
line for that too. No, banks will actually give you banks will give you a line to do this too if you have a track record. They'll
Mhm.
give you that debt, right? And then they'll be involved in it, but they will. Yeah, there's a lot of community or commercial banks that will give you a line specifically to do that.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Because I thought I was crazy when I said, "Yeah, we're gonna borrow this money at 7.5%, and then we're gonna loan it out at like 12 to 14.
You
Like, let's see how it goes."
Yeah, it's a wholesale line, so they do it. I've thought about doing it, but with the current situation, I'm going to do it this way. But if I ever needed to grow, or if like investors go away and I want to continue to do it, yeah, like you could do. I mean, a lot of people do it with HELOCs, right? They take their
Mhm.
HELOC out, they arbitrage that debt, and then they get their return. So yeah, you can definitely do it that way.
Hmm. Okay.
All
Well.
right, just a reminder, the PayPal link for the ORAT t-shirts that Frank is selling to, I think he's still planning to donate the funds to the Blind Center, where the Vegas event is held. So go check that out, please. And go check out the YouTube channels above and go subscribe. Got Dylan's, the First Responder Financial Freedom, and Hyder's new one, the Safe Streets program, I believe. I think that's the channel, right? Hyder, is that the one you put in there? But yeah, Hyder's working on a new YouTube channel. But yeah, if there's anything else you want to talk about, I did want to do a fun last because somebody sent me one of those baby um podcasts, meme stuff now, but it was a wrestling one of the Macho Man Randy Savage and a baby. So I told them in the group chat. So Dylan, do you watch wrestling? I don't know. I know Tyler probably. No,
I
what?
watch UFC.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was gonna say who's the best wrestler of all time, or who's your favorite wrestler? So
Oh, I don't have one.
Tyler must have one.
I watched it when I was growing up for sure. I
Yeah.
was trying to think. Well, see, that was the day like when it was like because I don't know how old it's like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the Bushwhacker Bros, right? You remember
Uh,
that?
okay, now I yes I
Now you know
do,
how old
but
I
I would
am.
never put those in my top 10
They're
probably.
not. They're not. They're not my favorite. So for me, back in that time, it was the Ultimate Warrior.
Uh, all the stuff coming out like where he was just not liked, right? He just was like one of those prima
Yeah,
donnas, and he didn't everyone didn't like wrestling with him, I guess, in a sense. Like he was just bad at his craft and he would hurt guys would get hurt wrestling with him, right? Like he didn't.
wasn't
Yeah.
good. Who's
Yeah.
yours?
My all-time favorite is Brett the not are you
Hitman
putting
Hart.
Nacho Libre, Steven? No, I think he put to put not Macho Man, but he put Macho Man. See, everybody's having problems typing today. But my all-time favorite is Bret the Hitman Hart. That's my all-time favorite. But I do like I would put Stone Cold Steve Austin up there. The Rock is up there, but all-time is Bret Hart, and then the all-time tag team is the Road Warriors, the Legion of Doom.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, yeah. But Jen likes Ultimate Warrior also and Hulk Hogan. Um, let's see. Yeah, Macho Man was entertaining though. He was I don't know if he made it to the pros, but he was a minor league baseball player. Huh?
Was he
Yeah,
really?
he was like a catcher. I think he played I don't know how far up but he was supposed to be really good in baseball. Um, Joel says, Tyler, I just pulled up your YouTube channel. I like the branding at the top of all your shorts. Good stuff. So Joel, go check him out also, Tyler. I don't know if I think I have his channel here. Hold on. But Joel has like 5 different brands, so it's hard for me to share all of his. But here's his Strive for 25 one. Andre the Giant. Yeah, Andre the Giant was great because he was in Princess Bride. So I like him from that. Skateboarding. Yeah, skateboarding was cool, man. He never got into that dude dancing. Oh, see, Jason tuned in for that. I know plenty of people with kids that are not doing much and failing themselves and their kids. Oh, yes, very true, Jason. Yeah.
That's true. It's kind of like that that thing we tuned into that Mike was on, like some of those guys that were just like in the perma loop of like just like thinking they could never get ahead, like no matter how hard they work and stuff. I was like, man, you can't be thinking like that.
See, Jason's the one actually sent me the baby meme of the Macho Man. So that's why I came up with this last minute, just fun topic. So hopefully he mentions who his favorite wrestler is. But Jen says her brother had a crush on Elizabeth, Macho Man's girlfriend. Oh, and now we're getting into other stuff. Joel's throwing up names, and this is all our generation. Dylan probably doesn't know them. Tiffany
No.
Amber Thiessen from Saved by the Bell.
So we're all the same age, it looks like.
Yeah, Jennifer
We're all
Love
old,
Hewitt.
Dylan. We're all old.
Yeah.
Like
It
20 years
happens
older
fast.
than me.
It
Yeah.
happens fast. How old did you say you were? 27?
26.
Oh yeah, exactly. I'm 45. I think Mark, aren't you close?
Dude, I'm 48. I'm 49 in a few months, man.
Híjole. It comes fast, I will say that.
Joe is 42, but he looks 50. No, Joe.
It's because he's a mortgage lender. That's what happens when you do mortgage. It's like
Yeah, that's
dog
true.
years.
Jennifer Love Hewitt. Yeah, she actually was out in Hawaii quite a bit because she was on I think her first kind of was do you remember Birds of Paradise, that TV show a long time ago?
I don't know.
So yeah, it was filmed out here. So Jason didn't really get into wrestling. Too busy playing hockey and chasing girls. All right, I guess people not everyone followed wrestling, I guess.
I think UFC is just is that just more my generation's version of that, or I don't know. I think it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, no,
No, I love
UFC.
UFC.
Yeah, UFC
Yeah.
is yeah, but the wrestling it it got wild for a while with they had all like the Trish Stratus and Stacy Keibler, and I don't know how, I haven't watched it recently, so I don't know how it is now, but it really got pretty
In the
raunchy.
80s it was much different. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the 80s it was like eat your cereal like Hulk Hogan, right? Take your vitamins, and then it started getting almost like X rates. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, Hyder will be 44. Yeah, UFC is real. Jason said, yeah.
Yeah, there you go on that. I think that's another thing that I never liked the wrestling for, because I knew some of it was scripted, so I just wasn't as interested in watching that. I liked UFC because they're actually just like there's going to be one winner and they're going as hard as they can.
Tyler, do you know Brian Waters? He's in your guys' circle, right?
Yeah, I know Brian Waters. Yeah.
Okay, no, he was tuning in from Instagram side, so I just saw him here. I know
We both work for LA County.
What is his brand? Something 3, right? Or no, I forget what it was.
Code 3.
Code 3. That's right.
Investments,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Do you guys like the original UFC stuff, or like you guys like the newer stuff? Like, do you like when it first came out?
So I liked it until Royce Gracie made it really boring with all of his submissions, and then it like kind of revamped up after that. Do you guys remember Pride? So like I used to like Pride a lot too. That was like legit. And then where I live now and grew up, a lot of kids that I grew up with were actually some of the earlier UFC fighters, like Robert Emerson, Justin Levins, Shane Del Rosario. All those guys were in Orange County. So yeah, like we grew up, and when that was blowing up with like Chuck Liddell and stuff, those guys were all fighting in the UFC as well. So I love UFC. But for a while there, I don't know. I mean, because that's when they had the open tournaments, right? And then they would just do
Yeah.
submissions, and everybody's like, "This sucks." It's like it's so boring.
Well, yeah, that's so
It looked boring.
well, so that's the thing. Oh yeah, Hyder Singh, Dan Fry, Tank Abbott. But
Yes.
so my friend is he's he has his own academy in Hawaii. So he's with the Gracie Academy. So Helson is like his mentor. So he's a big part of the Gracie community. But the reason why Hoist was there as their representative was he looked like that normal skinny dude that couldn't beat up anyone. So they had other Gracies that were better fighters, but they didn't want to use them because they were trying to promote the Gracie style to how everybody can benefit from it and how you can beat these bigger opponents. And he kind of, I don't want to say he's dorky, but maybe he had that little, dorkier look to him, and that's why they chose him at kind of as their representative for the UFC, and it worked, right? Because no one knew what was going on at the time, right? You're like, oh no, this,
what is
yeah,
this?
yeah. But it was there was no way you could have that now because it was like you said, tournament style, right? Like they would fight like 3 or 4 fights in one night, and
Yes.
yeah.
And like
And there
no
was no
weight class.
yeah, there was no weight class.
That was crazy back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's funny too. That's like the Aikido masters is like the same thing, like the smaller guys. But yeah, I mean, they blew it up. And I do think now, as much as I hate to admit it, like the guys that like, I think the fighters have progressed so much now that the early dudes like Tank Abbott, I don't think they would, I think they get worked. I mean,
Oh
not
yeah.
worked, but actually, I do think that. I mean, because they had no takedown, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Jason said Pride was steroid city.
Pride
Yeah.
was fun to watch, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, if you guys want to say anything else, this is a good one. Like I said, we just main topic and we just kind of go off on random stuff, whatever the questions are. Yeah, glad you guys can always do this. Like I said, as long as you guys come up with a topic, I'm I'm down to doing it.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And
Thank
I'm
you.
back tomorrow with MJ and Jeremy Taggart. So tune in tomorrow, everyone.